are going to learn about human design. And that's because normally I'm quite prepared for these conversations, but today I'm really not prepared at all. And when I was speaking to Sam Michelle Howard, who is my guest, and she started to explain what human design was, and I was like, actually, why don't we do this without me getting prepped? And then Sam kindly offered to do my chart. And while I'm quite a private person, I'm going to let her tell me my chart with you. So, Sam, welcome.
Hi, and thank you so much. It's an honor to read for you as well. But an honor to be here and to meet everyone tuning in.
Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly read what you sent me about human design, and then we'll go a little bit deeper in. Human design is the science of differentiation and a powerful self-discovery tool. It can be used to gain useful insights on your personal life, business, and health. Who doesn't want that? This can be helpful for anyone wanting clarity, focus, direction, and grounding in who they naturally are. And I love that because, so many of us think we need to be a certain person, or we have role models and we try to be like them, when actually it just takes too much energy and we really want to just be in harmony with ourselves.
Or they try to be themselves.
Oh, they try, yes, they try.
Yeah, try to be themselves as well. When what I've found, especially through this work, is that being yourself is actually the part that comes through when you stop trying, right? And you just release what isn't you, and what's left is you, because it's natural.
Yeah. And I like what you say, that it's not a one size fits all package. Never ever is.
The way of the future will not be come to me, I have the answers. It'll be come to me, I can facilitate you finding the answers for yourself. So that feels like the trajectory that we're on. And so anything where we can guide people further in when they're making decisions and deciding what they're doing with their life and how they want to do things is going to be more fruitful in the long run.
Yeah, I think we've really moved away from that. I'm going to just pay someone to make me better. It's like you get what you put in, and that is the sweat. So everyone has to do a little bit of work. But I think more and more of us are moving in that direction, and also realizing the importance of self-sovereignty, becoming independent, thinking for ourselves,
discerning.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about human design, because obviously it has some connections with astrology, but literally I have not heard of this.
It's amazing. So I look at all of these as whole, complete modalities. Now, human design incorporates astrology as a whole system and the I Ching.
Yeah.
The Chinese I Ching is 64 different hexagrams. And so those become the 64 gates in human design. So we're pulling astrology, we're pulling from the I Ching, we're pulling from the chakra system. When you see a body graph, it looks a little bit like chakras. And there are 9 centers. So it's the 9-centered being. And also the Kabbalah, also because it looks like a rave. It's a rave mandala. It looks like a mandala when you see the full extent of your chart with all the details. It's so beautiful. And then within that, as well as quantum physics, the neutrinos that move through at the moment you're born. That's the energetics that imprints these markers onto your blueprint. It's a problem-solving map. The language for me in human design feels a lot more cognitive and proactive, and it's easier for us to understand.
Okay.
The idea of this is to learn, put language to who you already know you are, who you are naturally, and use that to operate in life with less resistance. This is the whole point of it, is can we lean into these characteristics, the fixed energies we come in with naturally? If we lean into them, life becomes more easeful. It feels better to strive through a challenge that is correct for you than feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall and going around in circles. That feels really unfulfilling. If you have an issue here, we can have a look at the chart, put some language to it and see, well, is this correct for you? Or could we try something else? It's very much an experimental game.
Great. Well, I love experiments. So maybe we should get to it then.
So,
Thank you.
when someone looks at your astrology chart, we have what we call the big three. So that's usually your sun, moon, and rising. So the equivalent of your big three in human design is your profile, authority, and type. So your profile for you is 6-2. There's two numbers. 6 is your conscious line. So you're more connected to that. And I'm going to highlight something you just said there about loving experimentation, because that is part of your 6 line, right? That you're conscious of. And then your 2 line is subconscious. This is more your vessel, your body. The human design body graph that makes you is a combination of your personality and your vessel. So your mind and your body. And they go on top of each other and form your body graph that guides us through your map of you. So the 6 line is lovely. The 6 line they're all lovely. It's the role model. There are 6 lines. So what we start with 1, we go up to 6. So being the role model, for your first 30 years of life, you operate as a 3 line, which is the line of trial and error, which is the line of experimental wisdom, right? So you have to experiment. You have to fail more often than not. You have to keep getting up, making a mess, getting up, making a mess, and almost fail forward is the experience of the 3 lines or the 6 lines up until the age of 30.
That's very true. That's very
true. I always have to
true.
thank the 6 lines and the 3 lines, because it's you that you can't read it in a book. Nobody can tell you what to do, or that's going to be the outcome of something you're wanting to try. You have to get down and dirty. You have to experience it yourself firsthand. And so your experience of that and the lessons you learn doing that really support everybody else who's not necessarily designed to go through that themselves. I have a 1 line, so I can read it in a book. Or I can learn it from you. So you can teach me about all the things that went right and all the things that went wrong, and I can really digest that, and I can learn that, and I can apply that. Whereas you guys have to do it. And then between the ages of 30 and 50, you have this experience. And when I speak to people with 6 lines, they felt it in the first couple of years, early 30s. And it's this experience of going on the roof. So you kind of suddenly feel like you become a bit of an observer of humanity, of the world. You notice more of the patterns. You suddenly feel less like self-focused in your life. When you're a 3 line from 0 to 30, you're kind of in the mud, in the weeds. Yeah. And then 30 to 50, you've suddenly just got this inner space that allows you to see more clearly.
That is so true.
And then at 50, you have this experience where you come down off the roof, and then you can share with all of us your wisdom. So you've experienced it firsthand, and now you've sat on the roof and you've observed the patterns of the collective, and you can see what people need. And then you come down off the roof at 50 and you live as an embodied version of your experience and what you've noticed. And so that is why it's called the role model, because a lot of the 6 lines, their legacy, their gift to the world is how they be, how they live. They live according to the things they've experienced, the things they've witnessed, and the things they want to see in the world. And they live in that integrity. So
the 2, you said that the 2 is...
The 2 line is the hermit. So what did you say about being private?
That's really me too. I'm really private.
So while the hermit loves its alone time and is very private, it needs to be called out of its cave into leadership and into creativity and into its gifts. The 2 line is the natural, the talented. You have a lot of these gifts. You don't have to read it in a book. You just somehow get it. Whatever that thing is you're called to do, you kind of have a knack for it. You don't really need to do the 5 courses on it or keep learning. You actually just want to tune in. Of course, and it can be, there can be a line. I was always say with the 2 line, careful not to overdo the study, because you actually have it in you. What does it feel like to naturally bring through and connect with whatever you're studying, right? And the work that you're following? How does it naturally click for you rather than how you're taught to do it? Because that's what we need. The one lines, like myself, we get to study to the ends of the world, and we get to pull all the raw data and all of that together for whatever the other line is for us, right? So mine expresses itself in the 5 line of practical solutions. Lovely. But the 2 lines, you're the people who kind of don't take it from the book. You've kind of just felt it, and you bring it through in your own natural way. And that's how you contribute to this library, right? That the ones can study and people can learn from. So I would always say there's a fine line. Yes, of course, we love to study. We're all human. And actually, as a side, you have stellium is the word I'm looking for. A stellium in the 9th house in your astrology chart. So that's study and travel and exploration. And then you have also a lot of Sagittarius, which is also the 9th house. Again, exploration, seeking, wonder, light-hearted. So you will constantly seek and learn and add. But yes, I would always say, what's the natural essence that wants to come through all of that? And the 2 line is also interesting because it's something called a projection line. So there's 2 projection lines in the 6 lines. And the 2 line, the projection, is something that when someone interacts with you, they basically you will bring out the projections from that person, okay? And the 2 line, the projections sound like it's easy for you. I can't do that. It's easy for you though. Being a 2 line, being the natural, you can come across to a lot of people if they haven't done their work and they're not able to detect if they're seeing a reflection of themselves or if they're seeing you. Right? If they can't detect the projection field or see through it, their experience of you is, well, it's easy for her. Everything just works out for her. It just happens.
Not
right?
true. But I see what you're saying, yeah.
And it doesn't happen at all. The 2 lines, it's very frustrating. But I've found that working with 2 lines particularly, they're so validated and freed by this understanding that basically it takes an enormous amount of effort to make it look easeful. But the gift of the 2 line is to make things look easy. So when people do say that, I always just say, well, let them think that. And they're allowed. And if they do see that, you're also aligned, because it means that you're making it look easy, which is the 2 line, the natural, the talented.
Right. Okay.
The receiving, just being in flow. That's all this 2 line energy. So yeah,
Amazing.
It's partly it's a reminder that you're doing it correctly, and partly a reminder that that person probably can't see through the projection field to you. Because if anybody knows a 2 line, they know how hard they have to work to make it look easy. Right. So yeah, it's a helpful tool in saying, okay, discerning, like I said, strong discernment is how close do I need this person in my life if they can't see me, right? They're interacting with the projection field that my 2 line forms.
What are the other lines, just for our listeners and viewers to get an idea of what they are?
So the 1 line is the investigator. I have that in mind. So the reason I have access to so many different modalities and the ability to just be a sponge and just absorb, complete systems from all over the world, that's my 1 line activated. The 2 line is the natural. The 3 line is trial and error. We spoke a bit about that. Mm-hmm. You can have a 3 line. As a 6 line though, you operate first as a 3 line and then a 6 line. Mm-hmm. The 4 line is the opportunist. This is the networker. The person who all their opportunities will come from their network. So it's very important that they establish relationships in every part of their life. They'll find friendships in their network. They'll find business opportunities in their network, and potentially even partners in their network. If there are any single 4 lines that I meet, I'll always say, well, somewhere in your network is a good place to start. Somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, right? And then the 5 line is the practical solutions. So the heretic, the person who's going to just strip it bare and say, this is what the solution is. Big problem solvers, and also better with strangers. These people don't necessarily need that community. They need to be interacting with new people on a more regular basis, just increasing their interactions with strangers. And then the 6th line, we covered the role model. Yeah.
That's based on the I Ching hexagram. And then do they come to you for, say, a specific situation?
Usually it's either something in their life, something in their business, or something in their health, because there's parts of the chart that we can go down and find the essence of. I'll always say that you're not going to look at a chart and me be able to say this is what you have to do, right? But what I can extract from this, and that you can contemplate and sit with and feel into and see if it resonates, is the essence of that part of your life. For example, the next part of your big 3 is your authority. It's your decision maker. So while I can't tell you what the right decision is, I can illuminate how you're designed to make decisions. And then you can connect to that decision-making process that's natural to you. It's not specific. So you have sacral authority. So your decision maker in your body is your gut. And it operates as a yes, no. All decisions will run through your sacral center. That's your gut. And the best thing you can do is, rather than say, for example, have an open-ended question. What do I want? What do I want to eat? What do I want to make? What do I want to create? What do I want to do? These are all open-ended questions. And you may or may not connect with your gut, because it doesn't know what to do with that. It's a yes, no system. So is it a full body yes, or is it a full body no? But unless you give it a yes or no option, it's difficult to tune into what the answer is. So if you say, are we going to eat fish, or are we going to eat steak? Then your body can say yes or no.
That's a really good point, because a lot of people are stuck because they're not asking the right question. Perhaps this is something that our viewers can work on, just if they're stuck, to maybe even consider changing the question.
Depending on their body's decision maker.
Aha.
As the 4 main ones is the emotional decision maker, the sacral decision maker, the splenic decision maker, and the heart decision maker. There's actually 7, but we'll just go into these main ones, because most of population, 50% of the population, have an emotional decision maker. Right. And then it kind of gets smaller and smaller percentage as you go along. So the 50% of the population that have an emotional decision maker, they need to not make decisions in the moment. Where the sacral is a yes, no in the moment, the emotional need to be able to have some time to follow that emotional wave. So their experience is the decision is presented to them, or the question is presented to them, and they have to get really excited about it and follow that. Yes, this is such a great idea. This is what I want. And then they have to follow that all the way down and go, oh no, this is a terrible idea. What's going to happen? What am I doing? And follow this whole wave. And then when they hit this place of neutrality, which will feel in their body like about 80% clarity, then they move. They'll know. So usually these people will say, I just need to sleep on it. You'll never hear a sacral decision maker say that they need to sleep on it. They knew yes or no. Okay. So all of the emotional decision makers, I would always say, sleep on it, just follow the wave until you hit neutrality and move on 80% clarity. Because as an emotional decision maker, you have 24/7 access to new emotional information. It's their access point to the world, their connection to the world, their awareness center. And so they need to be really in tune with it. But because it's a constant stream of emotions, it's not just a yes, no, finish, move to the next one. There's no break for them. So they can move on 80% clarity, because in 2 minutes time, there's more emotional information. Yeah. Right. So they actually have to learn to make moves in motion almost. It's quite a skill. And so I am also very grateful to the emotionals. They do a lot of heavy lifting for our collective emotional experience, because they have the capacity to digest it and to use it. But they're also very sensitive to it. And so there's just, when there's a lot going on in the world, they're riding a lot of emotions and have to make sure that they're differentiating and keeping their emotional hygiene well, because they need to know what's theirs and what's not theirs. Very difficult to make decisions if they're making decisions with information that's not to do with them.
Not theirs, yeah. That's also a skill, isn't it?
Absolutely. Emotional mastery is the hardest and the most important for emotional decision makers. Yeah. So you've got emotional decision makers, sacral decision makers, then you have splenic decision makers. And these are so fast. These are the people that just, they walk in somewhere and they just know. And they don't know how they know. They've got no valid or logical explanation for it. They just get this tiny whisper one time that just says, yep. And then it will never speak again. And so they have to move on this tiny whisper. And I hear from some people that they're like, but give me more. Like, why? Okay, I know that you've just said that that's the decision, or it's a no, or it's a yes, or it's a get out or run or hide or whatever it is. It's very linked to our instincts, right? And so many people want their spleen to be like, well, just give me a reason. Like why is it a no? And they have no reason. There is no access to reason in that. It's just they have to move on that splenic whisper.
Instant.
Yeah. And some people just nail this. You have to trust that whisper, but it's possible.
And then the fourth one?
Then the fourth one we'll cover quickly is the heart decision maker. In human design, the heart is also called the ego. But again, we have to watch our language with this, because we have a lot of people will have connotations around what ego means, when actually it means heart. It's interchangeable with the heart in human design, and it's the willpower center. So this is the desire center. So if you have ego or heart decision maker authority, you have to follow your desires. What does your heart want? Not what does your mind want. None of these are mental. It's what does your heart want? And it can feel like a selfish decision maker. But ultimately, if you make decisions from your heart, it's good for you and it's good for everyone involved, because it's a heart decision. Your heart knows. So the challenge there is connecting to your heart and not confusing what you think you want to what your heart wants. They can be very different things. Yeah.
And so are there any other areas of human design that we can share?
Absolutely. My favorite part of the charts are the 4 arrows, which are known as the 4 variables. So they share with you how your brain's designed to thrive, how your body's designed to thrive, how you think, how you're motivated, in your mind, and also your perspective on the world. So having these 4, these are the kind of the structure. I feel like if we get these right, then everything else starts to flow, because we can put our mind and our body into environments and situations and orient ourselves correctly to our design, and then see what happens. And what tends to happen is that the resistance is relieved, right? Things become more easeful and more synchronistic and more seemingly magical. So I tend to focus on these as like the structure, and then we put everything else in the middle. Shall I give you an example?
Yes, please.
So your determination, which is how your brain thrives, is something called low sound.
Okay.
So if you're wanting to consume, process, learn, and also digest life or food, it goes to as deep as eating food. Your brain loves quiet, right? So you will digest better when everything around you is quiet. And so a lot of people with this, I would always suggest, if you have to be out and about, you have noise cancelling headphones or something like that to travel, or as you're in busy situations, if you're wanting to process as you're moving through. But when it's really busy and loud, it'll be great. But then only when you're in peace and quiet can you actually process all of that, digest all of that. You'll need to have your quiet time.
That's true.
So your brain loves that. And again, we will often already do these things. It's unbelievably accurate because you'll naturally want to do the things that feel good. So your environment, the way your body thrives, is in something called artificial shores. So shores it can be literal. So by the sea, living by the water will be very peaceful to you. Artificial shores are actually more man-made structures that are on a boundary line. So let me explain. It's like
that is already very interesting.
Really?
You
will love, your body will love to sit on a balcony, right? You sit there, and then on one side is something happening, as in the air, the world. One side, you're sitting. Okay? So you can see there's a boundary line that you could kind of see in different ways. Your body will love al fresco dining, right? Inside, outside, indoor, outdoor, just traveling, window seat, definitely, right? Outside, that's your boundary line. You're sat in the window seat, you can see out. Boats, nice to get a different view, all sorts of travel, just moving yourself across a space to see it from a different perspective.
But even from, it's a neither nor situation, sort of fitting in but not fitting in. And so it's not only on a physical thing, it's on many other levels. I can see that as being correct.
And your body will like it.
And also, I now live by the sea, and it's the first time that I've ever felt at home.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's
Chores.
spot on. Spot on.
Lovely. And then your motivation. So this is shifting into your mind. Your motivation is need. Now, again, we have to watch this language, right? We have to, because already people will think, oh, what does that mean? It doesn't mean you're needy. This motivation is the underlying driver of your thinking, is that you need to know what's necessary. You're here to focus on no fluff. Tell me what's important. Tell me what's necessary. Get rid of the rest.
You know what? My friends are going to be in hysterics now that you're saying that. I know that.
Because it won't, the fluff doesn't motivate you, right? The underlying driver of your thinking is that I need to get to the bottom of what's necessary in this situation. So very helpful for people when they're chaotic or they want to run situations by you, right? Because you will be able to see what's necessary.
Incredible.
Yeah. And that's your correct motivation. You want to be motivated by those things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it won't spark you. If there's no fluff and that's what's necessary, that's what's important, everyone's just getting on with it, it's not motivating. And then your perspective, how you're here to see the world through the lens of possibility. So you're here to see infinite possibilities. I mean, that's all the good things and all the bad things that could happen too, right? So we have to watch the spirals because you have access to this enormous, anything's possible view of the world. Anything, right? With no bounds. And so it's not for you to get stuck in reality, if you like, right? For someone else, I would say, yes, the opposite of that, the other side of the same coin is probability. What's probable? Yeah. But if you're leaning into focusing on that goal that you're going for or that vision you saw, if you're leaning too much into the weeds of how is that exactly going to be realistic that I achieve that, that will not allow the magic to come in. And for you being in possibility mode, the magic has to come in because there's things that you can do towards your vision, but a lot of the work ends up being done by the universe, by magic, by synchronicities. It's that magic that if you just hold the vision of the possibilities, orient yourself in that direction and walk in that direction with what you can, allow the magic to come in to fill in the gaps. And they will.
Now, I just need to tell everyone that Sam and I have not met, just in case you're wondering. And I'm not sure, I don't think we need any more information. I think that's sort of...
I mean, that's the 4 variables and that's your authority and that's your profile. I mean, that's
she's hit the nails on the head. Yeah. But Sam, is there anything else that you would like to add to the modality of human design for everyone?
I honestly feel like you said, I've shared this language, but you already know. So it can be very validating and very helpful and useful in problem solving and putting language to it. Do we need it? Yes and no. Incredibly fun and incredibly...
I think we do need it because, yes, deep down we do know who we are, but sometimes we're faced with turbulence in our life and we just need someone to remind us because we can't see through the mud. And that just helps us put us back on track or gives us a little bit of inspiration to move through. The great thing about it also is that you see yourself, but if you also know someone else's chart, you can also respect other people for being different.
That's right.
And not judge them, you know.
Yeah, and get to know them more deeply, validate them. Yeah, because exactly that. Once you realise how accurate yours is, you can see that someone else is different to you correctly.
Also, like, some very seasoned Ayurvedic practitioners, they use astrology or Jyotish or Vedic astrology with all their patients before they even begin. So I think because you do so many other things, I think it's very useful.
I use this as the base and then tag on everything else that I've learnt depending on what is in the chart. So personal life is one part, and then I'm particularly fascinated in the business side. For example, you can understand what your target market is, what your brand is, the scale at which you thrive, what success looks like to you. How you're designed to market, communicate, do sales, work. What are your values? Like, it's all these questions that we ask ourselves when we begin a business. I feel like this is a little bit of a fast track without getting distracted. It's like, this is how I'm designed, and it will feel good, and you won't doubt thinking, oh, should I be doing this, or this? No, it's this. And then same with health. I've used this as a guide to find the access points for my health and for others who might be struggling with things. And it's like, okay, there's a million things we could do to support our health. Which ones are going to be the biggest bang for my buck, right? This, I hope, brings people back to their center, gives them that confidence to just do what's right for them.
Yeah. Well, Sam, thank you very much for sharing all that. And if you're as excited as I am now, and you'd like to get in touch with Sam, you will find her contact details below. And if you're not local, I'm sure she'll be able to connect with you online.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you soon.